On a cold New Year's Eve in 1959, 16-year-old Mary Flanagan kissed her family goodbye and walked into history. She didn't take a suitcase, she didn't leave a note, she was never seen again. No CCTV, no mobile phones, no Amber Alerts, just a vanished teenage girl and a family left shattered in silence. Mary's disappearance would become the longest missing person case in British history. But over the next 6 decades, something even more chilling happened.
Welcome to Crime Bite.
In this channel, we peel back the layers of those hidden realities, raw evidence, conflicting testimonies, and emotional pleas for help that too often come too late. By looking into these crime bites, you'll see firsthand how broken trust, systemic oversights, and chilling motives can converge into stories that rattle us to the core. If you find this exploration as vital as we do, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notifications button. Together, we can shine a light on the cases that demand attention, ensuring every voice, especially the silenced, finds the audience it deserves. On the evening of December 31st, 1959, as families across London prepared to ring in the new decade, the Flanagan family was getting ready to attend a New Year's Eve party. In the West Ham neighborhood, the streets buzzed with anticipation. But amidst the celebration, a quiet heartbreak was unfolding, one that would stretch into decades of uncertainty and unanswered questions. Mary Flanagan, just 16 years old, was last seen by her family at home that afternoon. She had told them she would meet them later at the celebration. Described as cheerful, warm, and responsible, Mary was not the type to simply disappear. Yet after she walked out the door, she was never seen again. No goodbyes, no phone calls, no body. In the hours following her unexplained absence, her family grew anxious. Initially, they thought she might be with friends or delayed, but by the next morning, concern turned into fear. Something was wrong. Mary had never stayed out overnight without contacting her parents. When the Flanagans reported her missing to the police, they were met with assumptions and dismissal. Teenage runaway was the phrase most commonly tossed around, an explanation that failed to satisfy those who knew her best. With no real investigation launched and limited press attention, Mary's case quickly began to fade from public memory, setting the tone for 6 decades of silence. How does a teenager vanish without a single credible sighting or lead for over 60 years? Could this have been prevented with faster action from authorities? Mary Flanagan came from a working-class Irish Catholic family. Her parents, Eileen and Edward, were immigrants who valued family and faith above all else. Mary was one of 7 children. She was attending St. Angela's Roman Catholic school and was known among friends as kind-hearted, dependable, and always willing to help. Her disappearance devastated the Flanagan household. Eileen, her mother, never stopped hoping. She often said that she believed Mary was still alive somewhere out there. But time, as it often does, became a thief, stealing witnesses, records, and opportunities to trace her daughter's last steps. The family distributed flyers, posted ads in newspapers, and appealed to the public on radio, yet the silence was overwhelming. There were small moments of hope, rumors, alleged sightings in other towns, whispers of a secret lover, but none ever led to a real breakthrough. Each time the family's hopes were lifted, they came crashing down. In later years, the Flanagan siblings took up the mantle of keeping Mary's story alive. They pushed for the case to be reopened, connected with advocacy groups, and reminded the world that Mary mattered. Her absence left a hole that no amount of time could fill. What does a family go through when one of their own disappears without explanation, and the world seems to forget? In the years following Mary's disappearance, the lack of investigative urgency proved costly. Back in the 1950s and 60s, missing teenager cases were often downplayed, particularly if the person was female. Police operated on the assumption that many young girls left home due to family disputes, romantic problems, or a desire for independence. Despite the pleas from her family, there was no sustained media campaign or national alert system like we have today. The absence of surveillance technology, digital footprints, or national databases further hampered efforts. As time passed, the case grew cold. Witnesses moved, memories faded, and potential leads went undocumented. Occasionally, someone would come forward with new information, but most leads turned out to be red herrings or cases of mistaken identity. At one point, there was a theory that Mary had eloped or run away with someone from work. Another theory suggested she may have joined a convent or emigrated to the US, Australia, or Ireland. Yet nothing could be verified. With no crime scene, no forensic evidence, and no witnesses, the investigation suffered from inertia. It wasn't until decades later that renewed attention would finally begin to shed light on what had become Britain's longest-running missing persons case. How many missing persons have been overlooked because the early investigation lacked commitment, and what could we learn from these cases today? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to enjoy more. As the 1960s rolled into the 1970s, the Flanagan household bore the weight of unresolved sorrow. Mary's disappearance had left a gaping hole in the family, one that never fully closed. Her parents, driven by a love only a parent could understand, never stopped searching. Every knock at the door, every unfamiliar face on the street, held a whisper of hope. But behind every hope was an echo of heartbreak. The lack of media coverage in the years following her disappearance compounded the family's pain. Unlike other high-profile missing persons cases, Mary's story failed to capture national headlines. There were no nightly news updates, no coordinated national campaigns. Her name faded from the public consciousness even as her family's pain deepened. Mary's younger siblings grew up with her absence as a constant shadow. Her parents aged under the weight of uncertainty, their pleas to newspapers and local police becoming quieter as time passed, but never disappearing completely. Each New Year's Eve was a cruel reminder of the night that changed everything. What does justice look like when time becomes the biggest enemy? Can a case grow so cold that even truth fears to come out? The advent of the internet and DNA testing in the 1990s sparked a renewed interest in cold cases across the UK. Law enforcement began digitizing old records and reopening long-forgotten files. While many cases benefited from these technological advances, Mary Flanagan's file remained stubbornly quiet. Despite the promise of forensic breakthroughs, Mary's case presented unique challenges. There were no crime scenes, no remains, no concrete evidence, only a void. This void meant no physical artifacts could be tested for DNA, no digital breadcrumbs to follow. Still, the Missing Persons Bureau added her name to their growing online database. For the first time in decades, Mary Flanagan's face appeared again, this time not in fading ink on a paper flyer, but in pixels. Social media campaigns began trickling into forums, led not by journalists or detectives, but by ordinary people who believed that no one should vanish without trace. One such age-progressed image brought a flood of renewed tips and interest. Anonymous calls came in, as did unconfirmed sightings. An elderly woman in Ireland who resembled Mary, a woman in Australia with a vague memory of being in London in the late 1950s. None confirmed, all heartbreaking. Can technology revive a case when memory fails? And what happens when a digital trail leads to yet another dead end? In 2013, a development stirred the embers of the Flanagan case. A woman came forward claiming she may have been Mary Flanagan. She had lived under a different name for decades and had only recently uncovered clues pointing to a possible past life in London. The woman's recollections were fragmented, resembling dreams more than memories. A house with green shutters, a sister named Brenda, a New Year's Eve with voices arguing in the kitchen. Investigators took the lead seriously, conducting interviews, reviewing family photos, and eventually performing a DNA test. The results were conclusive. The woman was not Mary. The letdown hit hard. The woman's hope, the family's guarded optimism, the public's curiosity, all collapsed in a single line of data. Still, the encounter wasn't meaningless. It drew attention back to the case, bringing new voices into the conversation and reminding the world that the oldest cold case in the UK still mattered. Today, the Flanagan case remains open. Her photo still hangs in Scotland Yard. Her name is still whispered in true crime circles. She is not forgotten. Is closure found only in answers, or does the act of remembering keep justice alive? Like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to continually enjoy more. As the decades passed, so did much of the urgency surrounding Mary Flanagan's disappearance. The bustling industrial town of West Ham evolved, swallowed by the growing sprawl of London. Buildings were renovated, roads restructured, and communities transformed. Yet one story remained oddly untouched by time. The girl who walked out one New Year's Eve and never walked back in. Efforts to find Mary never entirely ceased, but they became background noise in a rapidly changing world. Her family kept her picture on the mantle, and her younger siblings carried her memory into their own families. For many years, her case was handed from one investigator to the next like a relic, worthy of respect, but believed to be unsolvable. Investigators interviewed aging neighbors, contacted hospitals and women's shelters across the UK, and checked immigration records. Some hypothesized she had run away with the alleged boyfriend, who may have had something to hide. But with the man never conclusively identified, and no definitive link between Mary and any departure route, the theory remained speculative. For Mary's sister, Brenda, the case never went cold. Brenda continued to speak to journalists, attend missing persons events, and keep the case alive on social media. In interviews, her voice would often tremble, not from age, but from the exhaustion of carrying a mystery that had no closure. She pleaded for the public's help, especially in the wake of DNA databases and genealogy breakthroughs. Brenda even submitted her DNA to several platforms, hoping a match might arise from an unknown child, grandchild, or distant cousin. Someone Mary may have brought into the world if she had indeed started a new life elsewhere. Despite decades of heartbreak, Brenda continued to believe Mary had not been the type to simply abandon her family. She wouldn't just go, she often said. Something happened to her. In 2013, Mary's case gained unexpected traction again when the UK media spotlighted long-term missing person cases. Her story was featured in online databases, a few news segments, and even inspired blog posts and podcast mentions. For a fleeting moment, the public remembered a new generation, true crime fans, cold case researchers, and amateur sleuths, took an interest. The internet allowed for the kind of crowd-sourced investigation that simply hadn't existed in 1959. Forums speculated about possible sightings, analyzed train schedules, and debated whether Mary had been coerced, trafficked, or murdered. Although no concrete leads emerged, the renewed attention brought fresh hope to those who had been carrying her memory. Over 6 decades have passed since Mary Flanagan disappeared. She would be in her 80s today if still alive. Her parents passed away without answers, and time has erased many details from records and memories. Yet her name lingers in a rare place of reverence, as the UK's longest missing person case still open. Scotland Yard occasionally reviews her case, and missing person charities keep her profile active. But as the pages of time turn, the question remains, what happened to Mary Flanagan? Did she board a train that night with plans of elopement, only to meet foul play? Was she coerced into silence by someone she trusted? Or did she survive, change her name, and live a full life away from the pain of her past? Mary Flanagan's disappearance isn't just a tragic cold case. It's a mirror reflecting how quickly some lives get buried in bureaucracy, bias, and time. She could have been your sister, your classmate, your daughter. Mary deserves more than to be forgotten. Help us bring new light to this 60-year-old mystery. Share this story. Comment your theory. Tell someone about Mary Flanagan. If someone out there remembers something, even a whisper, you might be the one who cracks open the silence. Like and subscribe now and be part of a community that believes no one should disappear without a trace. Not then, not now, not ever. Tap the notification bell. We're not done searching.